Alrighty, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday Kaffeeklatsch, which is a coffee chat in German discussion with Jack Spirko, John Willis, Nicole. Guys, we were here a month ago. World has not ended. How do you feel about that? Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, I've been waiting for a long time and it just won't end. Like it keeps spinning around the sun and people keep living, and I don't know.
Do you think they want it to end? I mean, it sells, right? Because if you turn on YouTube and look at anything prepper right now, oh my God. And it's constant, right? So do they want it to end, or is it because they're addicted to the attention, right? And obviously there's monetization to it as well. There's 50 channels out there right now that will tell you that all U.S. military aircraft turned off their transponders and went black last night. They're back on, but they would have, what's the first thing you think? Oh, we're going to bomb someplace, right? So, but can you affect it? Can you change it? Okay, if we're going to send and we're going to launch tomorrow, that can alleviate your life right now. I mean, what are you going to do different in the next 6 hours, right? Are you not going to sleep, or are you just going to party and, this is it? I mean, are you about to do some shit that you can't recover from in case if that didn't happen, right?
Yeah. I think we always have to be careful, right, with things like, all these channels will tell you that this happened. Well, it takes one of them to say it.
Yeah, circular.
And then they all start running their freaking holes, and they say, it's like, one of the problems we have with citizen journalism is the same problem we have with journalism now. Nobody knows what the fuck journalism is. Journalism is, when it comes to reporting a thing, you have two independent verified sources before you report it as a fact. Right? I learned that in like 10th grade journalism in high school. And apparently no one understands this now. Like the fact that, Dillhole 101 said it on his YouTube channel is now confirmation of a thing. I have to be careful with stuff like that.
It's telephone. It's circular reporting, and maybe it's not even malicious, and maybe it's not trying to one up the other guy. Maybe you just, they say if you give a sentence, if you give a 4-word sentence to the first person, by the time it's gotten to the 4th or 5th person, it's completely changed. The words have even changed.
Absolutely. Speaking of verification, I want to remind anybody, if any of us contact you looking like ourselves in chat, asking you to wander off into a WhatsApp and give us Bitcoin, that's not us. We're not going to do it. We've been getting hit with scammers over time. We will never contact you for any personal information in private chat. Okay.
But aren't you guys all verified? I mean, clearly it's not you. There's not a blue check mark next to it.
No, we're not verified.
It's all about the blue check mark.
We're going to talk about some blue checks later today. But on the end of the world shit, I think part of it is like John, you're saying, it is not malicious. And I think a lot of these people believe their own bullshit. When you build something that's on one thing, the food supply will run out by 2030, right? Or you build something on, the world is going to end in the next 5 years. Then everything that you see that's negative is confirmation that you're right. And then that gets thrown in. And then the big thing is this shit gets reported as factual, as confirmed. Like, I don't have a problem with somebody saying, hey, my brother, who's an ex-special forces guy, said that he heard from his contact that this happened, but we don't know if it happened. But that's an unconfirmed source, right? But when people start reporting shit like this absolutely happened, and you're like,
Did it?
And I do have some like source confirmation networks that I can go through that are like real source confirmation networks that will say, like, when I ask, they will not tell me anything. I will say, I've received this report, and they'll either say, I can confirm that is true. I can confirm that is not true. I don't know. I have no information about it. Or the best one, I cannot comment on it at this time, which usually means it's true.
Right.
But right?
Yep.
I'll tell you, yesterday I was on YouTube and I got sucked into a video because title was USDA is going to outlaw canning lids. And I'm like, well, okay, I'll watch this. And the entire video is about canning meat. Nothing to do with the lids. He's like, I'll get to that at the end. And then at the end, he's talking about the Tatler lids, which are reusable. And he's like, if the USDA looks into this, they might outlaw them because the ball canning lid production is set that you can only use them one time, and so they have a bigger lobby and they will win.
Is this the same guy that walks around in the woods, bald-headed guy? Tennessee banned wood stoves. Tennessee kicked me out of my cabin. Tennessee banned tiny homes. Like,
yeah, it might be. I saw 5 other videos panicking about canning lids being outlawed as a result of probably just reading his subject line.
There's a page that grew real rapidly in the last couple of years, and they're in the middle of nowhere and just kind of side of the hill under all the leaves and canopy and kind of eking out an existence, right? And they're talking about getting out of the city and bugging out and everything. Well, they've made enough money now that they are now can be in Florida in a high-rise building doing the exact same, content, but they're clearly not following their advice, right? And the most frequently asked comment is, are you going back to the homestead, right? And they're like, well, yeah, eventually we will. We have people there taking care of all these things. Awesome that you've been able to scale this, but what you built it on, you are no longer, you're no longer following the advice that you're still preaching. And it's pretty evident.
You don't believe your own bullshit, in other words.
Right. You found, and that's that sensationalistic title, that clickbait title, man.
Yeah. And it works, and that's why people do it, though, because it works. I mean, I'll do a show a week that'll be like, this could literally improve the life of everybody who listened to it. Put one thing into place, and there'll be like 40 people in my live feed. I'll do one a week where I'm like, everything's fucked up, guys. Come, let's talk about it. And there'll be like 400 people in my live feed. Yeah,
it's like using bikini models for your click title. It's the same. Once you do it and you get those eyeballs, you become addicted to that. You can never achieve that level without it. That's just what brings them in.
I mean, I think I could do better on my Twitter if I just took the Val icon off and put up a picture of boobs.
Yes.
That's all. I mean, all I could do is just put up a picture of boobs, right? And I've thought about creating like a sock puppet account to test that theory, like, and do it totally political, red meat to the red side, like just a picture of boobs and call the account my boobs no more than Joe Biden. Or something like that. And just, I bet you could build that into a couple 100,000 followers in a few months because people fall for it. And so I can only harp on the people that do it so much, except to tell the people that listen to us, don't fucking listen to those people.
Yeah, and if you look at the feeds on Instagram or TikTok or anywhere, that's what it all is, because that's what is trending, and that's why it is trending. Absolutely.
Well, speaking of Twitter, Jack, Spirko Damas, talk to us.
So yesterday I got a text message from John, and he said that they're about to start charging for blue check verification on Twitter.
I said that, and I sent you that because I heard you say it the day before.
Yeah. So I said they're going to do it. John sent me the thing, said, hey, you were right, check it out. And I look at it, and it says Elon's going to charge people $20 a month. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's going to be like $7 to $9. And he said, I'm hearing 20. I said, I understand. And that's what they're floating. But you float a big number and then you put out a reasonable number, and then people don't get pissed off about the number. So then I woke up this morning and Stephen King threw a freaking hissy fit, crybaby shit. He's like, I'm out of here if I have to pay. The guy's worth $500 million and he's whining his ass about $20, right? And so I'm out of here. And Elon comes back and says, well, we have to like free ourselves from being held captive by advertisers. So what if it was like $8? I'm thinking, I'm not good at new math, but I think $8 is directly between 7 and 9. And so there's people that would say, well, then how did you know that? I don't have any sources on that. I did that as people would probably pay about as much as this as they would pay for a Netflix subscription, 3 years ago. It was just like, this is a number that would make sense. And I look at it as a business person. And if it does anything for me and I can write it off on my taxes, I'll pay $7 to $9. I don't know if I'm going to pay $240 a year for a blue check. But this brings up another thing with this blue check shit. So apparently a lot of the blue checks are very angry. They're talking about how I earned my blue check. It's a status symbol, for God's sakes. If the poors can get in at $20, then it doesn't mean anything anymore. My God, man. One guy said, my God, man, it's like an American Express black card and you're ruining it. And I don't see it that way. I don't want a blue check on Twitter so that my ego can be inflated. I want a blue check on Twitter for the very disclaimer that Nicole gave a bit ago. I'm not a freaking narcissistic sociopath, and I don't want to see the people that follow me misled, and I want them to know they're dealing with the real Jack Spirko and TSPC. So I would pay for it so that I'm protecting the people that care about what I have to say. And that's what verification to me which should be in the first place. Now, if you want to give me some business tools and all that, add value to it, great. But I just figured 7 and 9 made sense from a business model.
Is this not the very reason that Twitter has the issues they have right now, right? You have all these fake accounts that which they're finding out and is coming to light now. If every time I banned some guy, if it cost him a few bucks to set up another account, he's going to stop doing what I keep banning him for. It's
right.
The same few guys, you know, we ban these accounts. You'll see it in here today. We'll ban them and they'll show up with the exact same posts on 10 different accounts. So if there's a financial obligation, and then as far as I've got some friends that have blue check marks on Twitter. They went through PR companies. Like they spent big money to do those things. And that's what this is about. It separates them from the poors. It's the elite. It's the status signal.
Well, everybody wants to be elite. That's why the TSA pre-check works so well, right? At first, it was the way to get through the line quickly. And then a couple of times it flipped over where the normal line was shorter than the pre-line because so many people, depending where you are, sometimes the pre-line is not the way to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be truly elite, just fly private. And then you don't wait in any of those lines. You don't go through customs. You don't go through any of that stuff. And there's
you
a whole
carry whatever you want on the plane too.
Complete different restaurants back there. I mean, everything's different for you.
Yep.
By the way, if you want to go between private and commercial, there's a new airline you guys should totally check out if it goes where you want to go. It's called JSX.
Okay.
And they're like 18 passenger planes, nice seats, one per, two by two rows, full service. You don't go to the where the horse are. You go to their own hangar at commercial airports. You only have to be there like 20 minutes before you get on the plane. You get on the plane, they take you where you want to go, and it costs probably a little bit less than commercial first class for comparable routes. So it's not the price of coach, but it's actually a little bit less than first class, and it's a first class treatment.
Yep.
Is there a bathroom on the plane?
I would imagine a plane of that size. I think they're like 20 passenger. So I mean, I've never been on a plane with that, that many people on it that didn't have a lavatory.
So one time I bought the cheapest flight to Atlanta.
Yeah, never do that.
I did. And the day of, I realized it's not flying out of Nashville Airport. It's flying out of the private airport next door.
Oh.
And it was a private jet. And same thing. No screening. I could carry on whatever I wanted to carry on. There was not a bathroom on the plane, but it was not a 20-person one. And they had to fly below 5,000 feet to get there.
Ooh.
Really?
Yeah. It was fine. Yeah. It was like, so it was low flying. And, you arrived at the airport, got there. I was like, this is great. I didn't have to be there super early. It's a short flight to Atlanta from Nashville. I loved it. And then on the way back, I was all stoked about my cheap flight, but I had to go through the Atlanta TSA to get to it. So they were building up to where they would have gates, but it was one of the best experiences of my life flying because I did not have to do all the bullshit.
That's cool.
So Nicole, I want to make sure we don't screw you over and not to get to talk about your topic that we didn't get to talk about last
My
time.
topic.
Because
it's a month old now.
You had information I didn't have. I had pseudo information about it, observational information. You had some stock information or something like that. Apparently, the people that decided that we could make meat out of beet juice and soy protein texture were wrong, and they're losing money.
So Planterra is the brand.
Okay.
In the U.S., one of the brands that sells fake burgers and whatnot, fake protein, like protein disguised, like crap protein disguised as animal protein, right?
Okay.
And apparently they're doing so poorly in sales in the U.S. that they are shutting all operations here. And it was, actually I'm looking at a press release from October 20th, which was just last week. Beyond Meat Inc. has lowered its revenue forecast. Maple Leaf Foods has reduced the size of its plant-based business in Canada, and Planterra is pulling completely out of the U.S., focusing on Brazil and Europe as their targets now.
Brazil.
Brazil.
Well, they did just elect a socialist there, so they might need it.
I don't know. I mean, I think we get a lot of beef out of Brazil, but
yeah, it's an export crop.
It just sort of was quietly mentioned,
and
faded into the background. And then you told me the size of the fake meat aisle in your grocery store has shrunk dramatically. The thing here, like apparently the whole fake meat movement. Have you ever been a vegetarian?
No.
I'm a hippie, like lefty in my former years. I was vegetarian for like 3 or 4 years and bordering on vegan. And you know what we ate? Rice, beans, vegetables. This is before I was allergic to beans. We ate whole foods, grains, breads, the portobello burger. You know, use a portobello and fry that up instead of a hamburger. It was delicious. And all of the fake meat crap was not. Like, stayed away from the tofu nuggets, like all that crap in the store. So it's not surprising at all for me to hear this, that they're, because you think about who their target market is. It's vegans and who else? Guilt-ridden meat eaters.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. And how many guilt-ridden meat eaters are there really?
Not
and they have to try to disguise it as meat, like somebody said. I mean, like the portobello, you know, it has the mouthfeel just like a hamburger. That's what you hear, right? It tastes just like a hamburger.
Does not.
Even Whole Foods. So I think Beyond Meat was Bezos, but Whole Foods had 3 aisles of fake meat in there. I never went and verified it myself, but I saw a lot of people say that. I haven't gone to look at it, but I see people in the comments here saying even Whole Foods is shrinking their fake meat aisles.
Yeah, apparently Azle, Texas is not a good place to sell soy protein. I'm shocked that nobody figured this out in advance, but they didn't have aisles of it, but they had like a full-on whole one of the big center meat coolers, and it was all Beyond Beef. And it was there for like a couple months. And I realized recently, after Nicole mentioned this last time, but we didn't talk about it, that when I went in there, it was like full of like pork ribs and shit. So I was like, did they get rid of it? And I went to like the frozen food part where like they sell Pop-Tarts and or whatever, those things that the trolls Hot Pockets, right? Like that area, and the frozen French fries and nuggets and all. And they have like one skinny thing of Beyond Meat. And my guess is it's probably all the Beyond Meat that was going to go bad. And they just threw it in there, and they just like, I guess if it all sells, maybe they'll replace some of it. Because when I asked the guy about it, he didn't even give me an answer. He just kind of rolled his eyes and walked away. He probably thought I wanted to buy it.
Just go to the pet food section, because they have plenty of coolers of real meat to feed your animals in there. I mean, I wonder if I guess the vegans are also feeding their dogs fake meat. Because, I mean, but you go to any of these higher end pet shops now, even Petco and PetSmart have huge coolers of raw meat to feed your animals.
Yeah. There's an article about that recently out about how we need to stop keeping dogs because their meat-heavy diet is killing the planet. And
Insane,
I'm like, you will get my German Shepherd right after you get the last bullet I have.
Well, I mean, we should kill animals so they don't eat animals, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what they're saying? Kill animals so they won't eat animals.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, go try to grow all those plants and veggies without the scatter.
I need to get this call. Keep going, guys.
Yeah, the green wokeism at my that Albertsons I'm talking about too, John, you'll love this. So they put in 2 beautiful places to charge your Tesla.
Right.
Azle, Texas, not exactly a place a lot of people drive e-vehicles. So they have like these huge, giant screens that are constantly flashing pictures of how wonderful the planet could be. That takes up 2 parking spots that can't even be used. And there's 2 of them. And each of them feed 1 parking spot where you can pull in if you have an e-vehicle and you're allowed to park there if you're charging while you're doing it. So they're taking up 6 total parking spaces. And I've literally never seen anybody use one of them other than in the last couple of weeks, people have started like, screw that, I'm parking there. No one's going to do anything. So like, you know, like a guy will pull his like F-350 into the e-vehicle reserve, right? And no one's going to do shit.
Yeah.
No one's been doing anything. And I'm thinking that how much electricity does it take to run those giant screens with all their bullshit on it? They have to be using more energy than they'll ever save.
Do those have nice diesel generators behind them, or are those ones actually electric?
No, they're grid tied.
So around here, they're all diesel.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I'll have to be fair for Texas Power. So 54% of the power on our main grid is wind and solar. 54%, which can be bad at certain times of the year too. Like, when all the wind machines freeze.
Yeah.
In the middle of the winter, that's not good that you're 54%. But we are actually the largest by percentage producer of our own, renewable energy in the country.
I think I saw somebody say that when you actually look at the carbon footprint of a windmill, to include, concrete, to make concrete has the biggest carbon footprint, but the concrete and everything that goes into those things, they have to be replaced. Like they're 100% non-usable at 18 years, but it takes 30 years to actually compensate for the cost and the carbon footprint of these windmills.
I'm not sure that's the case. When I dug into it, it was more like 2 years of payback. Okay. And then the big problem is the blades. The blades have to get taken down and replaced like every 3 years or 5 years or something. And you look at them, they look metal. They're made out of fiberglass. So it's incredibly energy intensive to produce them. And then what do you do with a 180-foot long piece of very rugged, hard to deal with fiberglass? There's not a lot of options for it. And it's more expensive to try to recycle it than to just dig a big hole and throw them in a hole. So that's like the big thing that if they're going to make wind viable, they got to figure out something to do with the blades, because I guess it's the stress on them after a certain number of years of being up there spinning around. And the farms are huge. We just had to do our quarterly run to the feed place. It's like 90 miles from here. And my wife had never been up there, and she was blown away. Like, we're just driving through miles and miles and miles of windmills. She goes, they're pretty big. And I'm like, that thing's like 10 miles away. Wait till you see how big they are when you get up there. So you've got these huge blades, and like, I don't know, man. That's the biggest thing. Like, you can't say that you're sustainable, renewable, whatever, if you're throwing away that much material every whatever number of years.
If they could just figure out how to make those blades out of bamboo, though, and at least it'd be coming at it from a recyclable standpoint or a biodegradable standpoint, right?
We see those blades. We see them going down the interstate. They're enormous. They can't haul them on normal.
They're huge.
Tracks. Yeah, they have like a truck that's like got a back that's not connected to the front, and they're doing this shit like bouncing up and down, and you're sitting next to it, and like it could be like a scene. Remember Christmas Vacation, where Chevy Chase ends up under the log, stuck in between the wheels of the truck? Like a normal sized car would totally fit underneath that shit.
Yeah,
I can't believe that's not been in an action movie yet.
Oh, you should write the script and make a lot of money because you have spare time, right?
Yeah, I got all kinds of spare fucking time. I will right after this workshop. I plan my year around like this massive workload, TSP fall workshop, one more week of crazy work, Thanksgiving, and fucking coast like a bitch till New Year's. That's my plan every year, and it works.
Yep.
SPX,
I don't quite do that well. I don't get my time off until Christmas.
Well, you sell a physical product that people buy to give to people for Santa Claus.
Yeah,
Day, so,
yeah. So it's I get through your workshop. I've got something going on here to keep production going then. And then from the minute I get back until about the 21st of December, usually it's just like longest days I can put in. John does that every day though, right, John?
Well, I have people that help me do it every day. Well, you might have the appearance. I mean, I was up at 3 o'clock yesterday, but I was not up at 3 o'clock this day.
John, have you ever thought about, for employee management, employing dog shot collars?
We actually put a dog shot collar on Tyler. We actually did do that. And like, we're shooting him with airsoft guns, and I'm like, just run. And he's like, okay, don't turn it up. By the time he got to the end, so he thought he could outrun the signal, but we had a 1/4 mile transmitter. So by the time we were done, we had it all the way up on 10, and we were hit. And every time you'd hit him, there's video of it. When we would hit him with this thing, he would jump. He would just jump up in the air like a deer. That's one of the better videos we did.
Deer, that's sucking for me.
It's amazing what you get people to do, John.
Well, they always come. I'm always baffled when I'm like, okay, what do you want for this? And they do it. And when we're done, I'm like, you should have asked for a lot more because I would have paid way more.
Now we know.
Jake Robinson to wear a shot collar, even like on his leg or something, and he won't do it. And I'm like, dude, we could scam the shit out of this. We don't even have to actually turn it on. You just have to know to pretend to react. I mean, imagine what we could sell that remote at the barter blanket for. And then we could split the money like 70-30. He's like, so I get 70? I'm like, hell no, you don't get 70. I get 70.
So he knows a lot of stuff, man. That guy has a lot of value. And I can't tell if he's really an asshole or if it's a shtick. Like, because he just has to come in and he has to put a fucking corkscrew into your skin all the time.
Well,
we all know people like that.
He cares 0%, maybe negative 10% what other people think.
Right.
Just start with that at the foundation.
But it's always has to be the fucking polar opposite. Like we were talking at the last event, like you'll be having a conversation, like high value conversation, and somebody will walk up and just completely derail the conversation and ask some bullshit about something that you're not even talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know people like that.
It just happens a lot. It's kind of like when you're talking and you know, people don't know this. If you walk up to two people at an event and their bodies are sort of at an angle facing out and they're talking, that's an opening to come join. If they are like parallel to each other, stay the hell away from that conversation. They're in the middle of something and wait until they open up. That's like a very 101 level how to interact in a crowd.
Or burglarize it. Listen to it, but fucking don't.
Right.
Like if you're talking about ABZ and you come up and you're talking fucking hot air balloons and zebras, like it's no sense, right?
Are we having hot air balloons and zebras at the next Self-Reliance Festival?
Oh, we might have a zebra.
There is a zebra there.
There's a
because
zebra.
Of John Dorothy wants freaking giraffes now.
We do have somebody who wants to show us some equine stuff.
I'd love to see that. So we can get you giraffes if you want giraffes, Jack.
I have no place for giraffes. I do not have, even in my shops, the altitude for giraffes.
He needs a baby giraffe.
She doesn't want like a giraffe's head. She wants like a full-on fucking adult thing like you have, fucking giant giraffe. And I'm like,
yeah. So you need a 25-foot shelter, at least in Tennessee, right? For winter with some heaters up there. But zebras are very doable. You can get zebras for $6,000 to $7,000 out of Texas all day long. And there's several kinds of zebras. And zebras will actually bond, just like a parrot. You know, you get a.
Oh, you mean living zebras?
You get a parrot. You get a parrot that's pretty cool. Yeah. And then all of a sudden your wife comes around and he bites the shit out of you. That's kind of how zebras are. They'll tolerate people, but they really bond with one person.
Yeah. I thought you meant stuffed. That's what she wants. She wants to stuff giraffe. She doesn't
want.
I
can get you that too.
Yeah, I know. We're not doing that either. I had no place for it. It's $6,000 for a zebra, dude. That zebra better make me some money because I can do a lot with $6,000 to make some money, right?
I understand.
They're like wild jackasses, is what they are.
They breed them. You'll see them crossed with donkeys. You'll see them.
Yeah.
Wait, will they protect my sheep?
Yeah, they will. They will somewhat. Yeah, kind of like a.
They'll probably eat tactical though. They'll eat tactical redneck if you get a zebra. They won't like him. I can tell you right now. The zebras aren't going to like him. So one of the greatest all-time African hunting guides, a guy named Harry Selby. This is a dude that hunted like with Robert Rourke and stuff like that. The closest he ever came to being killed was by a zebra. Rourke shot the zebra. They thought the zebra was dead, but then all the boys that ran in that did like the skinning and tracking and all that, they're all Muslims, so that has to be halal. So if there's any life left in the zebra, the priest guy will run out and cut its throat, and then they can eat that meat at camp that night. So they had shot the zebra, halaled the zebra. They're sitting there talking, and the freaking zebra gets up and attacks both of them, and it has both of their rifles pinned against their chest, and it's flailing at them and trying to bite their face. And like all of the boys just fucking run away and leave. Like, fuck it, I'm out of here. They ran away from it. These guys, tigers, freaking Cape buffaloes, fine. Freaking zebra, like, fuck this, I'm out of here. And one of them, who probably got promoted to whatever the highest thing you could be was, runs to the Jeep, pulls out a gun, sticks it in the zebra's ear, and pulls the trigger. So if it can take out Harry Selby, it doesn't need to be at 9 Mile Farm. Fuck that. No.
Okay, speaking of zebras, are they even good meat?
Yes.
I don't know, but they're a ruminant, so probably.
Yeah, it's like eating a horse. It's like eating a horse.
Yeah. There's a lot of emotion around eating horse, but I would totally try horse. I may have already eaten it and don't know it.
I would eat if it was on the menu someplace. I mean, I would if there was a place to eat weird shit, I would definitely go there.
I'm all for going to places to eat weird things as long as they're meat.
Yes. Yeah.
Not fake horse meat on the menu?
No.
Cricket horse meat.
I ate mesquite smoked bison sausage yesterday, and it was freaking excellent. Mesquite chipotle bison sausage.
Yeah. Well, as predicted, my coffee's going to arrive in about an hour and a half. So if Tactical's listening, he just kind of needs to know that piece of information.
So I saw somebody on here saying they would use those windmill blades for fencing, and maybe you would, but they're fiberglass, they splinter, and they're twisted. They're kind of helica. But something that might not be on your radar, a buddy of mine recently did, is he gets all the phone poles from the electric company that they take down. And an electric guy will tell you that's not a phone pole. That's an electric pole. Yeah. And they come in different sizes and heights. And I just saw Tag doing the same thing. They take these down and you can usually get them for free. They're covered in creosote, so they stay a long, long time. And if you have an auger, you can bore your hole and stand these up using a skid steer. And now all of your verticals are you have a fence system that'll be in place for, hell, I don't know. I'd be guessing, but 40, 50, 60, 70 years. And then you can run your slats on there and just use them, with lag bolts, bolt those things in there.
Yeah, they actually took out and replaced all the electric poles in the holler about 6 or 7 years ago. We ended up with one. One of my neighbors got 4 and used it for the foundation of like a pole barn shed to house thing.
Yeah.
He cut them off and it's still holding.
It'd be great to build decks and elevated platforms and stuff with stages.
Yeah.
We need a stage.
PP&L, when I was a kid, they had a place, the Pennsylvania Power and Light, where they just threw them all there. And a lot of them would be broken and shit, but you could go with a chainsaw and cut the pieces you want. My dad and I used them to build a deck across a ravine, and then he would actually go there and get them. He was a bootleg coal miner, and he would use them as mine posts. Yeah, in the freaking coal mines. I mean, so they're good reason. The problem with the blade as a fence is less to me the practicality of it; it's the expense. So, like we were talking, like when you see one go down the road, this is not throw it in your pickup truck type stuff, right? Like I have no idea what the freight on one blade is.
Good point.
But I can't see it. Like, I guess if you were leasing to the company on your own ranch, and so it was already on site, you wanted to start using it to build some kind of fencing, you could probably figure it out. Maybe, like you said too, the shape is not really conducive to fencing either. I think the scale is something that if you've never seen one up close, it's hard to even get your head around.
Something else, like my buddy there, Tad, said, I got a bunch of fence poles. I was not going to out you, because what you will find is if you have something that's very beneficial to you and people in your immediate area find out, they will go and cause problems. Well, why does he get them all? I want. And all of a sudden, like, keep your mouth closed while you're in the process of doing that.
Also, apparently horses and zebras are not ruminants, to your point, to the person who brought it up in the thing. I just learned something new today. They just eat grass.
It's going to be like eating a deer, though.
They don't have multiple stomachs. They do eat their poop, so they do digest it twice. So that I theoretically knew that, but I did not. Now I know that, so I learned something today. Thank you.
Horses are ruminants, though.
Deer?
Horses are classified.
Yeah, deer. But zebra is equine.
Got it.
Anyway.
What eats their poop? Horses?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yummy.
I said horses were ruminants and I was wrong. I like to admit when I'm wrong. It's better to do it in the same episode.
So I was listening to
people know.
I was listening to one of the Bundys from Bundy Ranch was on Tim Pool the other night. And James went out. James and all his guys went out there when they were killing his cattle. They actually shot 60 of his cattle from helicopter. And they did it under the guise of the desert tortoise. And what he was saying was that when the cows were all there, the desert tortoise population was so much bigger because they actually ate the dung from the cattle. The cattle would eat all these things up high that the tortoises couldn't get, and they would excrete it through their body, and the tortoises would come up and just eat the cow poop. So the population just exploded, which I found that part of it very interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
So
we can have a whole discussion. Go ahead.
I would say somebody with some knowledge on transporting the blade says it can be over $20 a mile.
Whoa.
So I want to have some train cars brought in here. I want to do some tiny houses out of train cars. I think that would be pretty cool. I don't want to rent them. I just want to have them. I understand.
Cool.
Well, based on my experience, getting an estimate for confirming and actually scheduling the re-chalking of your cabin.
Holy shit.
How's that going? How's that going, John? Is it done yet?
Yeah, exactly. Every time. So we actually set up a legit podcast studio. And when we sit in there, it's enough that we slide as we're going. So we actually had to bolt it. We just screwed a 2x4 there so that once we get there, it's the stop and we can no longer slide. And I think we just.
And this Jack, is like a cabin. Is that the cabin I saw being worked on?
Railroad ties. Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, and I've called these guys and I'm like, look, whatever your price is, I will pay you another $1,000. Like you can do it in the middle of the night. We can do it on the weekend. I'll have access 24 hours a day. Whenever's good for you, I will pay you another $1,000 past whatever your price is. We haven't had a dude show up yet.
Ken Esch, if you're listening to this, I feel like you should just schedule it. He was originally going to just come out and do that right before SRF last time, in addition to the shower, but he was delayed by a day. I think we just need to, whatever his schedule is, get him out there because I know he'll actually show up.
My tortoise eats dog poop. What kind of tortoise you got, Crystal? At least the horse aren't ruminants. Got it.
Survivalizer. Okay, let's do a fortune. For anybody who's new to this live stream, I don't know who you are, but welcome. And we like to break things up with fortunes that we've gotten from our Chinese meals. And if you want to send one in, send it to Nicole at livingfreeintennessee.com or use the contact form at livingfreeintennessee.com. You can type them out. You can send me a picture, whatever. This one comes from Dawn, and she says, good sense is the master of human life. Good sense is the master of human life. What do you think of that one, Jack?
I think you can add in bed to it, like every fortune that's ever been put into a cookie.
In bed.
No, honestly, say that again. Good
sense is the master of human life.
I would say so, and that's why human life is in the crapper right now, because good sense is not very common anymore. Like, I saw a thing today, and you just, on some level, I feel for these young people. This kid was sitting in the back of Starbucks, like in the break room or whatever, on the floor, doing a TikTok, losing his shit about how unfair life was, et cetera, and how no one cares about them at Starbucks because he had to work both Saturday and Sunday full 8-hour shifts. And I mean, total freaking mental breakdown. I'm a college student and I can't be doing this, and they don't care about me. And I'm like, dude, wait till you find out that that's normal, like all week long when you get a thing called a job after you get out of your college in 10 and a half years or whatever it ends up being. But literally having a mental shutdown, and that's not good sense.
I could not watch that whole video. I didn't watch it all either. So you saw it? I saw it. I'm like, what's this? And I was like, oh my goodness. Maybe it actually gets worse. And he's like, and there's so many customers and we're down one person.
Do you know what the wildlife sees when he walks out late at night or whenever? That's the limping gazelle. And the lions pounce on that. That is the victim. He might as well just have a fucking come rob me on him. I mean,
fucking pork chop on his neck for the dog, man. I mean, like,
I mean, I remember once one of my first jobs, I worked at a cultural training and translation company, and we did a really stupid thing and lost both of our primary and backup copies of all of these like safety manuals for heavy equipment that we translated. And because of that, we had to manually type them back in from hard copies, like in Russian, German, all of these languages. And we were pulling till midnight for several months, just typing that stuff in because it had to be done to keep the company going. Did we get paid overtime for that? No, we were salaried. That's what you did.
Yeah. That guy was also really mad that his manager changed the schedule, as though managers don't have like that's not what they're there to do, right?
Yeah, he didn't show up that day.
Yeah. Maybe when you're a manager, you cannot show up that day. Oh, you're not going to be one. I'm with John though. He's the limping gazelle. He's dead.
Yeah. I found this quote as regards the Paulgate situation.
Okay,
tell us what is Paulgate, Jack? Just give us the summary.
Some flaming nudist activist, bisexual, gay dude broke into Paul Pelosi's house and hit him in the face with a hammer.
Got it.
He's an ultra MAGA, isn't he?
Yeah, he's ultra MAGA. He apparently put some stuff online that said he thought the election was a fraud and he believed in QAnon theories, but he also lives in a hippie compound in a bus and runs around naked at gay weddings as an activist for nudism. So that's not your typical MAGA. I really don't think it is.
So in response to the allegation of, go ahead.
Why have they not just pulled all those Ring cameras that they're so fast to pull? I mean, we have cameras everywhere. Where's the cameras from the house? Where's the cameras from the neighborhood? Where's the camera? You know, everything is videoed now. Where's the geofencing? Why haven't they pulled that? They pull it all the time for any normal peasant.
Yeah.
Grumpy Acres is in the house.
I've said from the beginning, every extreme irresponsible conspiracy theory about this could be put to bed in 10 seconds with police body cam footage and security footage. Like if you saw a video of the dude, now there would be people like, that's fake, man. Well, okay, whatever. You can't please everybody. But if I saw a video of this dude climbing over his freaking giant fence at 2:00 in the morning, sneaking up to the door, busting a hole in the door, sticking his hand through and going in the house, I'd say, you know what? It probably vets out. And people have posted pictures of the Pelosi house. There's freaking cameras everywhere. And I'm not.
They have an elevator.
What's
they
that?
Have an elevator. They have a fucking elevator. You think they don't have cameras? He literally said, I was going to the elevator.
And so I'm not going to there's people that have they act like they have the whole thing sorted out. He was a grinder date or something. I don't know what happened. I'd like to kind of know what happened. But I just have this inkling that the man was allowed into the house. And so the famous picture of the hole in the window, if you look at that picture and you look down on the ground, big pile of glass on the outside of the window.
Wrong way.
I try to be okay. Could there be a legitimate? I guess if you smashed the hammer through and yanked it out,
pull it out, yeah,
maybe. But it looks very much like it's all blown out from the inside, which I don't know what that means. Like I said, I know the cops wear freaking body cameras in San Francisco. I know, like John said, there are not just the Pelosi cameras. There are cameras all over that neighborhood. Something stinks about this. And even Fox News was running cover fire for them right from the beginning. You'd think that they had Secret Service security, but they don't because the House leadership gets it, but not their family. And since look, okay, this fucker's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Nobody that is the husband of the Speaker of the House that runs $100 million+ hedge funds doesn't have security at their house. This doesn't make any sense to me.
Apparently, it's still a mystery as to who the man was in the vehicle when he was pulled over drunk driving a few months ago. That's kind of there's a whole conspiracy around that as well.
Yeah, and I don't like jumping to those kind of conclusions, but I think that's also a plausible thing that some rich old dude married to Nancy the Hag might have quirky sexual habits. That is a reasonable speculation from what we've seen from people like this in the past. It doesn't mean it's true. It's reasonable speculation.
if we want to go with Alex Jones, I mean, he will tell you that is all of that elite clubs kind of deal. You know, what's that? What's the place with the big giant owl, Harmony Grove or whatever it was?
Bohemian Grove.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of their thing. I mean, how often do you see some dude have to come out in a dress? Why do all these high dollar celebrities and, you know, elite power people, why do they put the dress on, right? Or the red scarf, or there's just so much weird.
You know, and here, this is the thing where Josh is saying the spouse of the third in line of president might have security. And the excuse is, well, you know, she wasn't there. So I look at it this way. I would think that when you have somebody that high in government, you're not talking about just a congressperson, you're talking about freaking Speaker of the House, that they might actually view the husband as a security risk even when she's not around because of blackmail and stuff like that, right? Like there might be some eyes on it, and the only way you get past all that is you stand down order and let the person in.
So I found this really cool quote in a CNN article after all of that, claiming that it's all conspiracy theory, all of what you just said.
Yeah.
Unverifiable, blah, 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 blah. We have a population that is unable to discern what is true and what is not. And this is spreading of misinformation from credible sources undermines that.
No, I got something I got to find. You guys carry on.
Well, didn't Homeland Security just get busted out yesterday with this Elon Musk stuff? Somebody put out some tweets or some actual text messages between Vijaya Gadde and the White House and a few other people involved in there, talking about how they are going to control the flow of information and the free think of population. What'll come of that? Nothing. Nothing will come of it.
If you look at all
they have their own portal. They can log in and specifically leave, like, we need you to do this, right? Yeah.
And if you look at all of the marketing around the Paulgate situation, I mean, news articles. Did I just call that marketing? It's all setting up that we're trying to get that emotional spark between, and I'm stating the obvious for Jack and John. We're trying to get the right-left thing going, and guess what is happening right now in our country? What's happening?
We're having an election.
We're totally electing people, right?
Yeah.
It's the perfect time. It's almost as if they wanted it to happen right now.
The slave suggestion box.
That's my term. But what I pointed out about that is it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what happened. It matters that you have this situation where people really were pissed, and they were talking about what they were pissed about, like inflation and grooming children. And now nobody's talking about that a week before an election. So it doesn't even matter how it comes out, that we're distracted. But when you were talking about, like, saying there's misinformation and all, this was the ultimate. So this is from Politico, and it says, Scott said officers arrived at the house, knocked on the front door, and were led inside by an unknown person. They discovered Pepe and Pelosi struggling for a hammer. Also from Politico, just a little while later, among those baseless claims that a third person answered the door when police arrived at the Pelosi home, which San Francisco law enforcement has said is untrue. So Politico, literally hours in between its own reporting, said this happened, and then said anybody saying this is making baseless claims, even though they could be cited as a source for the baseless claim. It's interesting.
So that's a good question. Comment on the diesel situation. What's your thought on that? Here, my take is, if it's true, and I don't doubt it, why would they tell us? Why would they tell us that, right?
So diesel reserves are a known thing. We have reporting on that. The problem is that you can take a fact and you can make it sound like it's something that it isn't. So when you say we only have 25 days, which is a number that keeps getting said, days and days later, it's still 25 days of diesel in reserve. What that means is if we don't make any more diesel fuel for 25 days, we will deplete the reserve. Well, now you're acting as if, like, we don't have these things called refineries and that they're not making any more diesel fuel. So they keep reporting this 25 days things as though on, November 22nd, no more diesel fuel. And what you're talking about is how much battery is there while you're charging the battery. So I think it's being maliciously reported. And I'm not saying it's good to only have a 25-day reserve of diesel fuel. I'm also saying that does not equal we run out in 25 days.
And that 25 days is EMP strikes the world. There's nothing can produce. Those are our war reserves. That 25 days, that's not for you and I. That's for continuity of government.
No, that's not the same thing. When they're saying 25 days of diesel fuel, they're not talking about strategic reserves. They're talking about refinery reserves. That's something that a person that's playing the stock market and buying futures is looking at. That's where that number comes from. Now they've totally fucked our strategic reserves, and that's retarded. And yeah, that's not something we're going to refill anytime soon.
The people telling us that run a business, and they need us to participate in their business. So if they give you fear, you'll keep coming back and looking for fear. And while your view count is high, advertisers will spend more money with them, and then they can continue to pay their upper level echelon ridiculous amounts of money. But they have to do that. And using clickbait. Once you use clickbait, you can never go back from using clickbait.
Yeah, I see that statistic being used to sell pemmican recipes and how to can. Yeah. And it's actually the reason I even said, how do we respond to the woke prepper syndrome that's out there? That's woke preppers. And by woke, I don't mean gender questioning. I mean, they just woke up and saw, and their first response was fear. And so that 25-day number makes people think that in 25 days, I'm going to have no ability to get anywhere. Supplies are not going to be delivered, and I need to buy, as opposed to step back and figure out what can you reasonably build in your life that's not going to completely screw you, or step back and understand what that number means. Somebody said they usually have 35 in reserve. So we're 10 days down. That's a third, a little more.
I like Space Girl. In May 22, the reports were that they had 4 to 8 weeks of diesel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which 25 days and 4 weeks are pretty damn close, right? 28 versus 25 days. So, yeah, and Tucker Carlson blew that up, right? He's a guy that when he says a thing, 50 million people repeat it. And so that number, it didn't come from him, but when he did his little Tucker segment on it, that's when everybody went apeshit. And then, like John said, then all of the people that are trying to sell you shit, or Nicole saying, sell you pemmican recipes or anything, the world will stop in 25 days. And guys in the prepper community, we sound just as stupid as these global alarmists that said we only had 10 years to act in 1989 because global warming was going to kill us all. We sound absolutely stupid, but we're actually dumber if we do this, because people will remember you said that shit 25 days from now. Like, everybody's completely forgotten about the AP article that went out from the IPCC in 1989. You show them that and they think it's a forgery, right? But when it's 25 days, your brother-in-law, who you're trying to get to prep, is going to be like, see, I told you were stupid. And he's right for a change.
Absolutely right.
Hunter, yeah, there's definitely something to igniting the fire, right? Getting them started. But how many of them get started and never do anything other than collect a bunch of shit, right? They've got a bunch of stuff in boxes, but they don't know if that's even in fact what's in the boxes because they've never unboxed it. So would we be better off coaching them into starting some sort of business so that they could be self-fulfilling and not have to rely on outside resources? And then once they have a business that's generating money and they can actually make more money for the more effort that they put into it, then they can prep. And you can still prep. There's so much prepping we can do that doesn't cost or doesn't require going and buying a bunch of stuff. Water's free for the most part when it comes out of the faucet. If you don't have a bunch of water stored up, the freest thing that you can possibly do, then you're just running around in circles. None of that shit's going to matter if you don't have water.
And water pays off sooner or later. It paid off for us this year. We had a well go out, and it wasn't fun. It actually gave us a real understanding of like how shitty it is to live without water pressure. But it was easy to get through because we had water stored up. Like our big water storage methodology, and we're still using these bottles. My father-in-law has passed away 5 years ago now. He used to drink that Arizona iced tea shit that comes in those big heavy jugs. And we would just say, every time you use one, just save it. And we have like a couple 100 gallons of those filled up And you know what you have to do with water to make it safe to store? Absolutely fucking nothing except clean the vessel that it goes into. You don't have to put any preservatives in water, guy. It's
no,
an
Jack,
easy thing you can do.
No. It goes stale, buddy. You gotta dump
stale, but
you need to cut the light out too. No light.
Somebody told me that the other day.
A little light.
Stale. I'm like, what is stale water? Who cares?
It's not stale. It does get a flat kind of like, you'll drink it, you won't die. But I mean, all we do is we use it. We use it and then we refill it. And so we kind of rotate through it because it does get a little flat is not the right word because it is flat, but it is. If you
shake it up, Jack, it puts oxygen back in there. And that improves the flavor when it goes flat. Just
when nobody has any water, are you going to give a shit what that water tastes like? And if we're really worried about it, filter it.
Yeah.
John, you got a new member. Woo!
We have 3,000 gallons of rain catch, and I have it going to a little SureFlow pump. And I figured out while the water was out, and I really am mad at myself for not thinking ahead because I figured it out like right before the guy came up with the new well pump in. But I just took a garden hose and went out to where that's pressurized, and I ran 200 feet of garden hose across the yard, went into the hose bib on the side of the house and opened the hose bib with a double female connector. I know that offended somebody's gender sensitivities there, but it won't work the other way. And turned it on, and then we had like not great water pressure, but we had water pressure everywhere in the house from that reserve. And I had thought about running a pipe underground to do it. I'm like, no, fuck that. It's quick and easy to. Now I know to do it.
Yeah. And how often does that really happen to you? When it's frozen out, that's We
made it 22 years before that pump died, and then we were out of like it wouldn't have mattered when it was frozen. That wouldn't have mattered. The friggin' tanks were frozen. Right.
Vacuum seal and O2 as well. I like to freeze dry my water.
Freeze dry your water. Then you add water to it, and you have new water.
You've got swales. You're covered.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, John's got like ungodly amount of money of water volume in that pond. I don't know if you ever calculated it, but I was going to calculate it for you, and then I said, "Fuck that! It hurts my head." It's
3
a
million
lot.
gallons. 3 million gallons is what the calculator said.
Is 3 million gallons really enough, though, John?
Well, I mean, it is at the lowest part of the property. We are going to have to move it with buckets. We've got multiple water sources. And I mean, any place we have a roof, there's gutters. Any place there's gutters, there's tanks. And I mean, you can take Josh, who's on here, saw us do this. He was there. We took rail ties and chainsawed them in half and put them up Lincoln log style, 6 feet tall. We put an IBC tote on top of that, and then we filled it with a garden hose. We've never strapped that thing down, ever. There's 5 of them on the property. We have winds whip through here. We've had tornadoes come past. We've never had one of those things blow over, and they're not secured in any manner other than weight. And it's a 6-foot head pressure. So I can move water by opening that thing up. And you're not going to spray, trucks off with it, but water will come out and go any place you need with those. And that's 275 gallons. Now put those next to a roof structure. Is that your vodka?
No, it's water.
Put those next to a roof structure, and now you can capture the water. Every time it rains, that thing will stay filled.
So I do events here, and the house bourbon is 4 Roses. And so we usually have some bourbon out. And after, 6 or 7 years of doing events, we have a good number of these. They make great storage containers for water as long as they don't freeze and you don't drop them. So it's glass. If you drop this, you have a big mess. But these work great. That's what, that's what we're flushing toilets with or whatever when we run out. Although I don't have to anymore because we've just changed my water system to be gravity fed. But
now that we're using booze bottles, I got a life hack.
Yeah.
Life hack.
What is it?
You or somebody drinks the little wine bottles, like sometimes Dorothy gets stressed and I go buy the little 4-packs. I was looking at those and going, wait a minute. When you make like frozen bottles and you throw them in a cooler, and it doesn't really do that good because it doesn't really come into contact. So we started saving all the little wine bottles and we freeze them. And it's like a whole shitload of great big ice cubes when you throw shit in a cooler and put them in there that you can reuse.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it was like we got to do something with this. Like we're wasting it, right? So, and like for storing water and stuff, guys, like any of the stuff that holds anything that's acidic or carbonated, those are really tough containers. Like I learned that if you buy like you say, every time you go to Walmart, buy a couple jugs of the water in the milk cartons, and you leave them in your closet in your bug out location, that one day you'll come home and you'll go up to your bug out location and all the water's gone and your floor's rotting because they just fucking leak at some point, like for no reason at all. Sitting still on carpet, can't handle it, just leak.
Yeah, the plastic just breaks down.
Yep. Don't use that.
Okay, so question: you say 6 foot head. What is the diameter?
So I don't know. I think what he's talking about is the outlet. It's 2-inch pipe, probably, maybe 3. I think it's 2. And then there's a reducer we put on there that runs into a garden spigot. So we're just running it through a hose. And you could easily put an inline pump in that thing and move water uphill or whatever you need to do.
Yeah, I just changed my water system to where it pumps from my spring at the bottom of my hill to a storage tank at the top, and then gravity feeds into the house. I do add pressure to it at my house, but if the power goes out, I'm still getting water, right? It is an IBC tote right now.
Yeah.
I have not purchased a 1,500, 2,500, 3,500 gallon tank. That will eventually happen, but I just needed to get something that works, and that's plenty of storage for me up there at this time.
And then somebody asked about the wood we used. You could use any wood, 4x4, 6x6s, but I mean the cheapest stuff to use, and again coated with creosote, is railroad ties. And we just chainsaw them in half and we just stack them up, Lincoln log style. So what's a railroad tie? I think it's maybe 8x10. And there's 2 different kinds. There's rail ties and there's bridge ties. A rail tie weighs 180 pounds, I think. And a bridge tie is like 280 pounds. It's a much bigger piece of wood.
So something that I've been wanting to ask you, John, this whole time. Show us your t-shirt.
It says truth. What does it say? Truth.
Casualty. Yeah.
The first casualty of tyranny.
They're on the way to you guys. We just got them tonight at 7:00.
Somehow that really fits with what we started out talking about to begin with.
Yeah, it is. It's
the ministry of truth.
Everything, right?
It's the ministry of truth.
I got a new term that I'm really attached to now. And apparently the genesis of it was Michael Crichton, as in the guy that wrote Jurassic Park. And I learned about it from some Hispanic dude doing a presentation on quantum physics and quantum computing. And so I didn't understand him. And I thought he was calling it German amnesia. And it turned out it's called Gelman amnesia. And Gelman amnesia is where you're reading a newspaper. Crichton wrote this in the 70s, so people read newspapers back then. You're reading the newspaper, and it's a subject that you're very informed on. So you're like, bullshit, and you know it's bullshit. And you turn the page, same fucking newspaper, and there's these outrageous claims about something you're not informed on, and you take it all to be true, and you forgot what you knew 1 page ago, that this source wasn't reliable. And I heard that and I went, holy shit, that's the 2020s in a nutshell. That's the whole thing. Everybody out there has something that they've cared about enough to become informed on, right? And they know they're being lied to. And then the same people that tell them this bullshit tell them some other crazy bullshit, and they just swallow it like a baby bird eating puke out of mom's mouth.
Trucking industry is saying Southeast U.S. is set for biggest disruption in diesel market. Already some truck stops limit amount of purchase of diesel. Truck stops do not stock more than a day or 2.
Okay.
Ask your truck drivers.
That's what I do.
True.
Yep.
That's probably true, but that's a lot different than we won't have any diesel fuel at all in 25 days.
Hugely different.
Hugely.
And when else have we had disruptions in that system in the last 2 years? Every time we have a hurricane?
Yeah.
Hit the Gulf Shore?
Yeah.
Pipeline hack? Anyone? Right? We've had to live through that before, and we're all still here. The world still hasn't ended.
You know, you can have the same effect if you have all the diesel fuel in the world, but you have a bunch of pissed off truckers that park their fucking rigs.
Also true.
As preppers, these disruptions should not be shit that send you ripping your hair out screaming and trying to make pemmican. You should have shit so if things go sideways for a few 3 weeks, you can just get through it. Man, I got people pissed at me when COVID started when I'm like, I had people losing their fucking minds. And I'm like, you're supposed to be preppers. Quit crying. I lost a lot of followers right at the beginning of COVID because I was like, I'm not going to countenance your fucking freak out. You know, people are like, well, I got to buy wheat berries. Bitch, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, go to the feed store. Well, I never thought of that. That's because you're not thinking. So you couldn't get wheat berries from Honeyville or whatever. Like, you can get wheat berries from the feed store. You can get wheat berries from the freaking homebrew store. And do you fucking eat wheat berries? Like,
yeah, none of them have ever. They don't have a grinder either.
What do you do with a wheat berry?
I have a grinder for sale.
What do you have?
I don't remember. It's an electric one. And during that time, I just happened to have it because I used to bake bread. And I was grinding wheat and mailing it to California where they couldn't get flour, my family. Well, now we're on the other side of this, and I have a very nice blender that grinds, a cup of wheat. So I want to get rid of it because I don't use it, and I'm not going to use it. And my mom doesn't want it. So I'll put it out there. I have a bunch of prepper stuff that I'm getting rid of because I'm never going to use it. That I used to use, but don't anymore. Going keto actually changes a lot of things that you need to have in your kitchen. The KitchenAid is on probation still.
It changes a lot for the better. If you do store wheat for emergency calories, the easiest thing you can do with the wheat, you get a thermos, like say that it's bigger than this here, and you put the wheat in the thermos and you pour boiling water in the thermos. You put the lid on the thermos and you do that at night and you eat it for breakfast.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do. You don't have to grind it. You basically make a bugler, I guess they call it, or whatever. Throw a little honey on it. That way you can actually stomach it and eat that crap.
It's basically a wheat-based oatmeal is what you're making there, right? It's when you have whole oat groats.
Wheat, oats, like any grain.
Barley, any of it.
Yeah, barley. Barley actually tastes best out of all of them. I only know how to do shit like this because I like to make beer.
It's what the villagers ate. It's gruel.
Yeah. Please, sir, may I have some more?
It works, though. You can crack it with a hammer.
Crack it with a hammer? You crack it with a Nutri-Ninja.
Yeah. I got rid of my Ninja. I have the other one now. I can't remember the brand of it, though.
The big one. I have it, too.
The gold standard for a wheat grinder is the Country Living grain mill. It's all cast iron. I think they're about $700 now. I have one. They have a gear reducer for it. They got a bean auger. They're the best, right?
Yeah.
But the General Electric wheat grinder makes way better flour, and it does it in a minute as opposed to 20 minutes, and it makes a better loaf of bread. So why don't you just live with the amenities of electricity? Have that as a backup if you want to.
Yeah.
But I mean, I want to live like Tag from Life Done Free, 4,600 square foot house. You would never walk in his home and go, oh, is this place off the grid? I don't want to live in a shack. I can live in a shack. I have shacks. We have lived in shacks. But I want to live with modern amenities when there are no modern amenities. And that's how I'm setting my life up.
Yeah, 100% there. It doesn't hurt to live in a shack and learn how to live simply, or go backpacking and learn what you really don't need to survive. Yep. I think that's a great lesson. But I think you also quickly, like, I live pretty simply here compared to most modern Americans. And those are things I've chosen. I also have a coffee maker that grinds and makes the espresso perfectly every morning. And it takes 45 seconds. And all I do is that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the luxury I want. And there's nothing wrong with having that. And if there's not power, yes, I can figure out how to make coffee without that thing.
She did have to make me an error code cheat sheet for the fucking thing, though, because I refuse to use it anymore.
No step on snake.
I got every error that thing is capable of throwing in one morning.
He was mad.
Because I'm a fucking idiot and I don't know how it works. And then but I like my French press. See, it's simple. It works off grid. Basically, you can boil water and all. But, like, I'm with you. I don't want to give up the luxuries in my life. There's a reason that I busted my ass my whole life so that I can enjoy that. Preparedness is about redundancy, not living like a pauper when you don't have to. I don't want to live like that. And I would love to be fully off grid. I just, it's a lot hotter here than it is up there, and it takes a lot more effort to do that here.
I use my air conditioning in the summer. I do. And it was not keeping up when you were here last time. That was horrible.
Oh, yeah, we weren't there very long, though. So
yeah, the oven turned on. I was like, wow, my AC is not keeping up. This rarely happens, but it's happening now when the two people who hate being hot are in my house. It is what it is, right?
And Hunter says to clip that. If you clip it, you're going to have to clip it from Nicole's. Nicole gets exclusives on this for the podcast side of things.
All right.
I will be on later today at, I think, I don't know, 12:30. This afternoon, I'll be on with an episode of Bitcoin Breakout for the podcast today.
Cool. What's your topic?
That it will never be easier to stack sats than it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is the best time ever, and it's not going to ever be easier than to do it right now, and how to do that and why.
You're going to be able to make some money day trading Doge here, or you would have. I mean, you still can. What would you
I made about $8,000 when they pumped it last time playing with it because I had some play money, but I really don't do that much anymore. Like my problem with doing it, if I do it publicly anyway, is then people emulate it and then they say Jack told me to buy Doge. I didn't tell you to buy Doge.
It just doubled. Yeah, it just doubled.
It doubled because everybody thinks that Musk is going to integrate it into a payment system on Twitter, which he's just crazy enough that he might, but it's still garbage. I mean, the guy that made it says it's garbage. The guy that made it says it was a joke. There is some cool shit going on Twitter, though, guys. This is fun. Check this out.
What would you tell people to do as far as Bitcoin right now? Like, are you buying Bitcoin right now?
Oh, absolutely. But for a deeper answer, tune in at 12:30 Central Standard Time for my live feed on my channel. But this is what's going on Twitter right now. Like when I say Elon is changing shit, it's real. This is the president of the United States being fact-checked by the Bird Army. This is new. So this is a claim that was made by our president, the dementia guy in the White House. And this is additional information provided by the Bird Army for context about the Inflation Reduction Act, completely stating that like what's being claimed is not true. That's interesting to me. And what I like about the way they're doing this is it's not being done by fact checkers. It's people that volunteer. And then as they put this context in, other Twitter users say, yes, this is helpful or not, and why it was helpful. And it's a merit-based system that allows this to then show up and be like this check on bullshit. And so somebody asked me, are you going to be okay when they do it to Republicans? I'm like, fuck it, absolutely I am. Like, it looks like, at least on Twitter, it's going to take away the ability to make these claims like we created 30 million jobs. No, you didn't, dickhead. You liar. But they have to do it nicely. I applied to be in the Bird Army. I'm not qualified because I have been wrist slapped on Twitter. So if you've been wrist slapped at all, you don't get in the Bird Army.
Oh, I haven't been wrist slapped.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't do Twitter for like a decade.
There are there's like 6 qualifications to be in Bird Army. And like that, all mine had little blue checks. And then the one about like not causing trouble, big fucking X. I applied anyway, but
troublemaker.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a cap on the insulin cost? And then Biden, first day in office, undid something that had that in there?
So that one got fact checked too. When he said he put the cap on the insulin, it only turned out that it applied to seniors that were on Medicaid without any private insurance or something. It was like a third of the people he was claiming actually benefited from it. So I know Trump did something for some level of price controls on insulin, but the recent one with him was something different. And he claimed like 8.5 million diabetics would now be able to get their insulin for no more than $35. And the real number was like less than 3. And the Bird Army like totally hammered that too. And so you have to wonder if like every time you do that and put that shit out, there's this kind of curated news source now, like the citizen journalism news source. And you have to cite shit. You can't just make claims. You have to be like, and here's the article. So each claim has an article from a trusted source verifying the claim. Like, it may change the whole way these guys have to market their bullshit.
Yeah, it would be cool.
I'm cautiously
I'm so sick of the Facebook fact checkers. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Like,
we don't like what you said, fact check.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they'll cite a thing that's totally not the thing you claimed. I had several of those where like, here's this article that debunks this. And it's like, that article's not about my article. It has nothing to do with me, you know?
Right.
You know? Oh, and by the way, you're thrown in the clink for another week or whatever. Like it's amazing how much that was marked disinformation is now accepted fact, 6 months later, a year later.
Well, I mean, we're gonna have COVID amnesty now.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. Did you see that, Nicole?
No.
There's this chick. She's some PhD from some university that was totally one of the mask wearers, shame your friends into getting their vaccines, limit where they can go, all this shit. She was one of the rah band of the whole thing. Well, she writes for The Atlantic, and she just had an article out that we need to declare COVID amnesty. See, we were all scared. We all didn't know. And we all said some things we shouldn't have. So we need to call a truce on this now so we can heal and move forward. It's floating like a lead balloon tied to a steel bumper. It is like, oh my God. Like, oh, how about no? Like, I'm not going to forgive you for shutting down and destroying people's businesses, destroying people's careers, terrorizing special needs children by forcing them to wear masks and shit like that. Like, no, you don't get to just call an amnesty. But it also, doesn't it kind of tell you that the tide has turned?
Tide has turned. Well, the thing is, even if COVID was as bad as they said it was going to be, the actions they took were too far.
Yes.
That's just, go there. It doesn't matter if we have to declare, if we feel like we get a pass on, we thought it was bad. Even if it was that bad, those actions were abusive.
Well, have you seen the Veritas undercover video of I don't know who he was talking to, but he's like, yeah, we're going to make them take the vaccinations. Yes. No, we're not taking the vaccinations. Yes, but we're still going to make them take the vaccinations. Like, that shit is just unraveling, man.
Yeah.
You just had a court say that they had to rehire all those firemen from New York City, and New York City goes, yeah, we're not fucking hiring.
We're not doing it.
We're not doing
it, right?
Yeah.
So what I said to that is, and I think it was actually sanitation workers. It got reported a bunch of different ways, but some group of workers that brought a lawsuit against the city. This was a Supreme Court judge of the state of New York. This wasn't a lower court. Said, yeah, you're wrong. Hire them back. They get back pay. And the city said, no, we're not going to do it.
Right.
And so I look at that and I go, you guys are really pushing for a fucking revolution. You're really pushing for this insurrection you said you were so worried about with this January 6th bullshit, because you're getting to the point when justice becomes impossible. Then revolution and insurrection become inevitable because they did everything they were supposed to do and they won, and they were just like, so is this judge going to do anything? Because if I'm this judge, okay, who said no? Guess what, buddy? You're in contempt.
Contempt.
We'll just throw your ass in the clink until you change your mind. But when it's the state, it's all grab ass. Well, they said, okay, fine. All you fuckers in the clink. You can, when you come apologize, because I do that shit to normal people all the time, right? When you apologize to the court for your, insolence, I will, release you from the clink. Throw all these bitches in the clink. I mean, if I got an order that said I had to pay John because I owed John money and I said no, do you think everybody's just going to be like, oh, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. John's going to file one piece of paper and the sheriff's going to come to my house and they're going to throw me in the clink until I come up with some means of, if I don't have the money, there'll be some means of restitution.
Well, you're just seeing that the people that pass the laws don't follow the laws. The laws, I heard something from Tate the other day, and he said, have you not noticed that all crimes, 99% of the punishment is financial? That just means legal for a fee. That means that if you have money, you don't have to follow any of those laws.
Jack's always said that.
Yes. Yeah, legal for a fee.
Legal for a fee.
Legal for a fee. When justice becomes impossible, revolution becomes inevitable. That's when people flip their shit. When they're like, this remedy you've offered me, even when I win, it doesn't matter. Well, then why am I obeying? And revolution can take a lot of different formats, right? Like, revolution isn't always hanging people from the light posts outside the Capitol. Sometimes revolution is, you're no longer relevant. We don't care. We're not doing what you say anymore. Goodbye. Which is kind of what I think this group endorses is a much better way to handle things. Like, just not doing what we're not, I remember during the COVID thing when they shut down this beach in California, and eventually a bunch of people just got pissed and they just started going to the beach. And the county commissioner or whatever came out and said something like, the people have decided they just don't want to be governed this way anymore. And it's like, oh my God, will you people look at what happens? And they don't. There was just a thing in France. They were doing some shit in the street, and all the riot police went running in like they were going to just like kick everybody's ass. But there was like 100 police and like 5,000 demonstrators. So when they got up to the line, all the demonstrators just kind of stood there like, are you sure? And the cops just freaking stop, and then they just go back. And it was, my favorite freaking movie of all time for quotes is Tombstone, the one with Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday and all. And there's a point right after the shoot at the OK Corral that pansy-ass marshal or sheriff or whoever he is comes up and says, "You're all under arrest." And Wyatt turns to him and says, "I don't think I'm going to allow you to arrest us today, Behan." And that's what that was. That's what you were seeing in both of those situations. Like, we're just going to nullify what you want.
Interesting. Well, we have a question about the 4 state constitutional amendments here from Freeman, but I don't think Jack is that versed on Tennessee constitutional amendments.
I have to know what they are.
Yeah. I have a list of them if you want to go through it, but it's up to you.
If you guys live in Tennessee.
Amendment 1, right to work.
What's that?
Amendment 1, right to work.
Would that be right to work like it is in Texas, where like I can fire at will, you can quit at will, like that? Is that what it is?
First proposed amendment on the ballot would take an existing Tennessee law over unions and enshrine it in state constitution. We've had it written into code so we're already a right to work state. They're just taking it out of
hire. I thought we're a right to hire state, not a right to work state.
Basically allow non-union members to enjoy union benefits, which reduces the ability of members to exchange the collective bargaining in the work. Yeah, it's basically right to work here. I don't have a big opinion on that one. I'm anti-union. I'm not a fan of unions. If people want to organize and try to collectively bargain, that's on them, but I can say no. And
that's pretty much what that would
that's
do.
All I mean, that's what I want to see everywhere, right? So I don't know.
As I understand it, John, what that would mean, let's say the SOE was a union shop. It was a bigger operation. All your guys were union. And you hired me. And I'm like, I don't want to work in a fucking union. I don't want to pay union dues. And you offered me the job. I could take the job. And if they negotiate a raise, I get a raise. Like, you can't compel me to be part of your union. You have to show me the benefit to me by being part of your union.
Got it.
Yeah. And if unions hate that, right? But this is not a super union friendly state anyway.
Since I'm pro freedom, I'm pro that, because all it does is enshrine a greater freedom.
The second one is assigning an acting governor. So instead of it going straight to the Speaker of the Senate, it would change it so that one could be assigned. I don't know by who. I obviously have not dug into this one because.
You mean if the governorship is vacated?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you just default to lieutenant governor? Like a vice president? Like, how does that work now?
Speaker of the Senate. Responsibility of governor state falls to Speaker of the House after the Senate.
Huh. That's weird.
That's weird because we have a lieutenant governor.
If Abbott got a plane crash or something, what's his name? Would be Dan Patrick would be our.
So the amendment would add new wording to include situations where the governor is temporarily unable to perform their duties for medical reasons, such as for medical reasons, similar to existing constitutional rules. Speaker of the Senate is first in line to assume the governor's responsibilities as acting governor.
Huh. So it's basically
they would have to submit a written signed declaration that they were able to resume their responsibilities.
I don't know. That's on you guys.
Yeah, that's parliamentary. Removing slavery as punishment for a crime. So slavery is outlawed in this state, except as restitution for a crime.
I don't consider that slavery.
I wonder how they'll interpret that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one, like, slavery is bad, right? So you instinctively say, okay. But if we wanted to have restorative justice instead of punitive justice as a model here, that would mean you were drunk driving or just driving and you killed somebody with your car. And right now we go to jail for a while for that. Restorative justice would say you're going to pay the family this amount, this percentage of your paycheck for the rest of your life to help make up for the loss of that person, or any number of things, would that be considered slavery, and which punishment is better? In one case, you go to jail and destroy a second life. In another case, that person is trying to give back for the harm they caused. I don't know how that would play with this as a state constitutional amendment.
Well, one's criminal, one's civil, so a lot of times both happen.
Right.
But the guy has no means to pay.
Yeah.
Like, if you start using the word slavery, I kind of see it like they're going to put this guy in a chain gang.
Yeah.
And we're going to pay for his labor, but you're going to get the money. Like, that's how I see them trying to make the bridge of that over to slavery, like debtor's slavery. Like a lot of the debtor's prison people that initially came to the colonies were in that situation. A lot of them, people think, well, they just got out of it. No, they came here and cut down masts for ships or something for a certain amount of time to pay off their debt. It was a way that they could gain freedom through that. I don't know. I have mixed emotions about that because I think if somebody owns part of your labor, you are a partial slave. However, what did you do to cause that to happen? Did your dad sell you to them? That I have a problem with. Are you being taxed for protection? And that mainly means protection against the people taking the money from you. Not cool. If I seriously did something with due negligence to harm John, it is right that I in some way make restitution. And if I'm unwilling to do so, I think it makes sense that I'm kind of compelled to do so.
On the other hand, we throw people in jail and farm them out for pennies on the dollar to do work without really paying them, right?
Yeah, or we pay them $2 an hour.
Removing slavery as punishment for a crime. That's not really okay either.
Yeah.
The way we do that in our system.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to debate here, I think.
A
lot to dig into.
I'd be really interested as to if that passes, then what does the Tennessee Supreme Court say it actually means? And I don't think we know what it means yet.
We don't.
I think that if I was going to write an amendment for that purpose, instead of using some trigger word like slavery, I would say these specific practices shall not occur in the state of Tennessee. That's how I would phrase it. Because when you just use a word like slavery, man, you could get a judge saying this has nothing to do with being punished for a crime. And you could get a judge that would say this has to do with any labor force out of the prison system. I don't know. I think it's poorly written.
Removing religious minister disqualification. So delete from the Constitution. So basically, it hasn't been enforced for a long time. Your eligibility for holding office, you are not eligible if you are a religious minister. So they're removing that. So like minister of a church can't hold office.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think that people should vote for who they want to vote for if they actually think voting matters.
I concur on that one. That one at least is simple for me in my head. I don't know about you, John.
Well, I mean, imagine if you couldn't profit while holding office. I mean, imagine people wanting to hold office would change. We should hire qualified people, not, I mean.
I've given up so much on the system that I'm not even voting this time.
No.
I'm going to be in Dallas area helping get ready for a workshop.
You're not suggesting?
I'm not suggesting.
I'm not.
I looked at my local elections. I was like, there's nothing that my vote's going to change there either.
No, it's multiple things for me. One is that, I mean, if I look at my place I live, like the lowest Republican vote is going to be 78%, the lowest on projections. So it's irrelevant. And I'm not. People get mad at me when I say this, but like, you have to use math to tell me that what you want me to do matters. And if you can't use math, I don't want to talk to you about it. Isn't that a pretty simple way to, like, as a grown-up adult human being that lives in a world of facts and reality, instead of like, if you don't vote, you can't bitch. I'm like, I ain't voted since 2006 and ain't nobody stopped me from bitching yet. So I don't know what you're talking about.
I feel like your songs should have the song that we should be playing right now.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
We're going to get you that clip.
You guys keep going. I think I can find it.
It's so funny because every time somebody asks me these things, and the hard part is I worked in public policy for so long. that I get sucked in and I start reading the details and I start thinking of all the way this can be abused, right? In these laws, or somebody screams about like whatever the feds have just passed about, canning lids or whatever. And I go in and they're like, this will make it so that blah is illegal. And I read it and it's not true.
Yeah.
The majority of the time claims about what has just been passed. It hasn't been passed. It's passed the House or the Senate and not the other one. And it dies right there. A lot of times these things that have people up in arms, and every so often something does pass and get and signed into law. And then I actually read the text and it makes, it makes slavery for a crime, a constitutional amendment not allowed. And then it's like exception when you go read these things. And that's where I think we jump to conclusions and trust our pundits way too much, because they'll explain what it means and then you go read it and that's not what it means. It means that in this very narrow situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And there is a lot of the whole just passed. And it's the Fenord, the false truth, right? Like you say, it passed the House or it passed. And a lot of times it's a thing that has no hope whatsoever of ever passing anything, like ever actually becoming law. Yep.
But people get all upset about it, and instead of looking at what they can do in their own lives to make their lives better, they go off on that tangent. But then I always feel compelled to read it just in case.
Yeah.
So you guys trick me a lot. Okay, here's a question. I have fox issues with my chickens. It's elusive as hell. Tips on trapping or shooting them. This feels like a Jack one to me.
Yeah, so trapping is difficult with foxes, and I can't visually demonstrate a fox set, but you need to look up on YouTube how to do it if you want to do a leg hold fox set. But I can kind of explain to you. I bet Dave Canterbury has a video on it. With fox, you have to actually make it hard for them to get to the thing, or they know some shit's up. So what you do is you basically dig a hole and you put the bait in the hole. And then you set like a coil spring trap in the hole over the bait. So you've covered it, but you still below the ground. And they make a tool. We used to make on like STP bottles that once that you have it set and you have that pan set light. So when that fox touches it, that trap's going to close up on the fox. You put this tool over it. You take a sifter box and you sift dirt over the trap. So it's completely covered. And then you pull that tool off and you'll see the top of the pan. And you need to sift over that. And if you don't do that, you're not catching a fox. A fox will totally just look at a thing and go, no, fuck that. Right? That's the old thing. If it's too easy, the fox knows it's a trap. So that's a fox set. As far as shooting, man, get some freaking night vision and camp out. Like one of the really great things you can do, get some decent game cameras and pattern this animal so you know when it's active and set up and snipe his ass. But the best thing you can do is make sure your animals are secure. The one good thing about foxes is generally they're active at night. So if your animals are closed up, they should be a lot safer. But you can get them active during the day. I've got a bobcat right now that I am patterning to put a hole in. When David was over the other day, Nicole, we're out there sitting there with the dogs, and the fucker came and took a bird right in front of us. So if it's a daytime animal, you need to really get some patterning in sometimes, and because they are very they're kind of on a schedule in the way they act. But if you want to trap it, like conibears and stuff like that, and then be careful you're not trapping your own animals. That's why I hate conibears. Conibears are killing traps, and so you could kill your cat, you could kill your neighbor's cat, what have you. And so that's what I would do if you're going to trap it is learn how to make a hole set.
It's funny. I have never had I've had so many predator issues in this area. Never a fox.
Never a fox, huh?
I've had weasels. I've had, raccoons were the worst ones. I've had coyotes, all of it. I've had bobcats, but never a fox.
We've had a little bit of hawk trouble. We have raccoons and they just don't bother anything. I don't know if they're just well fed or what, but freaking bobcat's a problem right now. I've had some coyote issues. We killed one. Another one, I think it got to the point where hey, there's probably easier places to be that I'm less likely to die. Yeah, but this freaking bobcat now, man, And I'm actually kind of excited about it, even though I've lost some birds, because he's like a perfect, beautiful pelt. And of course, the born-free people in my audience are always, you shouldn't kill predators. It makes more predators. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Right? It just, no.
Here's an interesting question. Also, if Tactical is listening, it's time to go get the coffee at the dam. We don't let the trucks come to Hollow Roast Coffee because have you seen my road, Jack?
The truck couldn't get there.
I've had a truck come here one time and drive up into the holler.
No.
And my electric lines are too low for a semi to drive through, like the ones the company sends on. So, yeah. So Tactical was on the front of this truck holding the lines up.
I used to have to do that here.
Yeah, and we did that one time. I was like, yeah, no, we'll just meet you at the dam. Thanks.
We had our CATV line on our pole coming into our gate way too low for any kind of a high truck to get through. And there's several times I had deliveries where I literally was staying on my own truck with a 2x4 so that the truck could back in. And we went through hell trying to get the cable company to lift it the hell up to spec, and they wouldn't do it. And as you know, I have two gates. Well, my other gate's the big double gate. So every truck driver coming down this country road that passed their place was backing in there and stretching the coax cable as they were turning around. So once they fucked it up good enough, then they finally sent a contractor out, and they were giving me shit about it. I'm like, guys, I can't help you. But I can't imagine that on your road. I don't like your road. Yeah. At all. In a car.
We've only had one semi on its side in the creek.
Only one.
It's been 15 years, only once.
We had all of our overhead wires rerouted so that we can bring semi trucks all the way around the building. As far as the bobcat thing, we have dogs. Everything here is fenced. We have dogs. We have zero predator. I see somebody said hawk. I have guineas. When hawks come over, any aerial predator puts a shadow down. Those guineas go absolutely insane. The dogs come running. Our dogs actually got hold of a hawk. So dogs really if you can contain them and you have the right animals, it will take care of all of your predators. We have zero predators.
Charlie took out a hawk, air dogged his ass out of the air. So they'll do it. My thing is, I can't justify the expense of a dedicated livestock guardian dog.
Yeah.
On a property with 30 ducks and a dozen chickens. Yeah. That dog will never pay for. We have dogs when they're out there, they do their thing, but it will never pay for itself. If I had the kind of livestock situation you do, it would totally make sense.
Yeah, we have. I mean, and it works for people too. I mean, our dogs will bite the shit out of you if you come past these fences. So, I mean, we've got 4 of them, and in another few months we'll add a 5th one. And the 2 older Pyrenees, we're going away from the Pyrenees. They're good dogs. They're just very soft. I want something much more aggressive.
Well, that huge ass dog, I can never remember what it's called. You have
the
that
giant
dog
one.
scares the shit out of me. That dog's freaking.
The Kangal, yeah. We have 2 right now. We'll add a 3rd here shortly.
What kind of dog is that you have?
Kangal, Turkish Mountain.
Kangal. Oh,
if you've never seen them, just Kangal. Type it into YouTube and watch some of the night vision videos of them going after wolves and bears and stuff. They use them for.
The dog's head is like a bear's head.
They're made for heavier predator load. They use them against mountain lions and wolf packs and stuff, especially West Coast.
Yeah, my 2 LGDs are about to get some raw diet from the very sheep that they protect. Because when I took him to a processor this time, and he said, "Do you want the dog food?" So everything ground up into dog food that was not edible. And I was like, "Yes, I do," because those things eat a lot. And yeah, why not?
We still haven't butchered those. I killed one of those Cornish crosses the other day and weighed it, and it was 13 pounds.
So I can get my Thanksgiving chicken from you this year?
That's
dressed weight, isn't it? The 13
pounds. That wasn't dressed out. And that was not a big one. That was a female one.
Okay.
The males are considerably larger. So I kill them and just give them to the dogs. So the dogs eat those, and they don't chase the live ones. They eat them dead.
Yeah.
And then rabbits. And that's what the dogs, 90% of their diet is rabbit and chicken.
Cool. Did you ever see the thing with Greg Judy about the dogs turning and eating the lambs and why they were doing it?
No,
I didn't.
So the people say he had people that he was advising that would say all of a sudden they realized they were losing sheep and the dogs were eating them. and he'd come look at their thing and he'd say, well, your dog's freaking starving. And he's like, I keep the feeder full all the time. And the freaking sheep were eating the dog's food.
Yep.
So there was no dog's food. So the dog's like, I'm going to eat. And y'all ate my food. So he made this contraption where like the dog has to like crawl underneath it to get to the food. And it works for people. That's just, I never even thought of that being a problem.
Look up jump gates. There are super, if you need livestock dogs, there are some very good groups on Facebook. And I know people like, I don't use evil Facebook. Well, you're missing out on a shitload of information from people that literally do this stuff for a living.
Yeah, I've gotten really great information off the LGD groups, and all of it in private chat and not the comments in the group.
Yeah.
Because something like that's not going to happen to John. His dogs are right there. He can see his dogs. You're actively feeding your dogs every day. But some of these guys, they're running 800 head of sheep.
Yep.
And they're moving them a paddock every 2 days or something. And that dog's out there on its own multiple days without being checked on, doing its job. And if I get hungry, I'm going to eat a sheep.
Well, because if you're farming, if you're grazing sheep on other properties, right?
Yeah, and that's what Judy's doing.
Yeah. So I mean, you have to have an animal with them, otherwise other animals are eating. You have to have livestock dogs, otherwise you're just feeding predators.
Yeah. So we did have an issue where we built a sheep-proof shelter that turned out not to be sheep-proof, and they just, once they know the dog food is there, they will do anything to get it if they've tasted it. And so Nick Ferguson was here over the weekend, and what we've gone to now is we're just supervising feeding and feeding them as much as we can twice a day. Nick was here and he said, well, what you need to do is make it so the sheep can't see what's in there. Like, put the shelter out. They can't see what's in there. Have nothing in it for a while. Drag it around. And then the dogs will know and the sheep won't know. So that's where we're at now, where we're going to redesign it a little bit to make it less easy for the sheep to crawl up in there. And also what they were doing was like headbutting it until it moved enough to get the feed. And then we're adding a feeder hopper. So you have to push the door open. And I think eventually we'll get back to where we just have the unlimited supply of food. But it was, we were just like, well, this is great.
If you feed raw, that problem completely goes away. Now, if you feed raw, you also have to feed those dogs because you will get aggression, if you're free feeding raw. So, if you've got 3 dogs, you've got to give each of those dogs a rabbit or whatever it is you're feeding them. Like we don't feed our dogs meat. We feed our dogs animals. We don't even cut the belly anymore. We literally, I grab a rabbit, I smack it on the edge of the cage. It goes limp and twitches and kicks for about 30 seconds. And then I hand those to the dogs.
Yep. We just don't have rabbit production like John Willis does.
But you could easily. So easily you could.
I'm probably going to have to get rabbits from you to do that because mine are not being very fertile.
Yeah, we've got great rabbits. We've been giving, anybody comes over, we've been giving rabbits away every month. Somebody comes over and we give them, a male and 3 females or whatever they want.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, John, Nicole, how do you remit sales tax for physical items? I bet we all have a different answer to this one.
I don't even know the answer to that. Maybe Amanda will answer in here.
Yeah. Jack, how do you do it? I know you have to remit sales tax on your merch store.
Try not to.
No, I don't. I don't run my merchandise store. They have to do that. I don't touch physical product directly. So in the state of Texas, a service is not subject to state sales tax. So my MSB membership is the only thing that I sell directly without an intermediary. So there is no sales tax on it. So I don't do it because I don't want to.
Have you noticed that when you buy things online now, it doesn't even say state sales tax. It just says tax.
Yeah.
All these companies where you buy shit from, it's just tax now.
Yeah.
Now on tax, totally different thing. But I just had a thing that we had to fill out for Amazon. So we do Amazon affiliates. And we also have this, they have an automatic program that will convert your Canadian and UK, only Canadian, UK, nothing else. So our Canadian one, we had to fill out a tax form, and the Canadians are taking 25% of all income earned as a Canadian Amazon. I don't care because I make like $100 a month on it or something, but the Canadians are taking their own tax on it. Everything's taxed. Fuck these people.
Okay, so I actually have to do the tax on my physical product, and there is a minimum threshold of gross sales per state per product, and my product is a grocery item, so not every state has groceries. So it's really, really confusing. However, there is a plugin for that. So it's called Jetpack as part of my WooCommerce store, and it pulls a report on how much total I've done, and then I take the number and I report it to my accountant, who pays my sales tax for me. I've seen the form. Like, I could do it myself, but I don't want to do it myself. And then I collect based on what I need to collect on. In the state of Tennessee, I collect based on the county in which I operate, not the county in which the person purchased it. And it's actually not that hard.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. You just have to spend the 2 hours figuring out how to set up the technology. Now, if I had an in-person sales situation with a POS, it would be built into my point of sale system. And I bet that's how John's is. It's just built into your whole system. It's a report.
It is. And I have a tax lawyer, I have an accountant, and I have a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
So the collective answer is, if you're running a business instead of having a second job, you don't do shit like that. Like, each one of us has a way that we don't actually do the thing.
Yeah.
John has people, Nicole has technology, I have business model. Like, we just don't, I don't have time to be fucking around with that, just to be blunt. Like, I have a business.
You're going to run all your sales. All your sales tax comes from sales. And all of your sales, for the most part, are going to come through, like, we use Shopify. We don't have any presence online anywhere. While it looks like a website, it's Shopify. And Shopify has apps to plug in to do anything.
And that's all built in, right?
Yeah. They make it easy to pay them their money.
Yes.
Imagine if you just had a flat tax, then you wouldn't have to do any of that shit.
I mean, yeah, I'm there with you. I don't like taxes, but I sure like simplicity of tax if we're going to have it. And ours ain't simple. How do y'all structure your time for maximum productivity when there is so much to do?
My priorities are simple. Will something die if I don't do this? Okay, that's the number one.
A no-kill list.
Right. And then the next thing is, will something break really bad that will be expensive if I don't do this? So that's the homestead. Everything else is a 3. In my business, does this directly affect revenue? That's a 1.
Yeah.
Have I made a commitment to my audience, my people, my group, whatever, that I would do this thing? That's also a 1. Everything else is a 2 or 3. That's the simple version.
John.
I mean, you want the real answer? I mean,
yes.
Sleep faster, get up at 3 o'clock.
It's going to be very different. But
I mean, that really is the answer, right? People, if you look at your day as a 6-hour day, don't look at your day as a 24-hour day. You have 4 6-hour days, and allocate those. I'll give you 6 for sleep, okay? So then you have 6 for work. You have 6 for whatever. But most people, they're on this thing for 6 hours, or they're watching television. If you can tell me anything about a video game or a television series, you're not doing what I'm going to tell you that you need to do. Everybody on here looking and everybody here speaking has the same 24 hours. It's just how you choose to use those 24 hours. Now, some stuff I will myself spend 2 days doing only this one thing, because that's what it takes, is 2 days to do it. And it's going to take 10 days if I don't just do it. But I look at every day as how much money do I have to make, right? If you want to make $1 million in a year, you have to make $3,000 a day. That's not $3,000 5 days of the week. That's $3,000 every day. And when you don't hit that, you have to make that up the next day. And every time that I miss if I'm after 10,000 a day and I only hit 3,000, I'm never going to make that money back up. It doesn't ever happen. Those are lost opportunities. And that's how everything is. And Jack said, will this cost a lot? And I'll even weigh that shit sometimes. I'm like, I really don't want to go out there and do this. How much will it cost when it breaks to just have my guy come over here and fix this so I don't have to? Like, we don't ever turn off the aquaponics system. It literally freezes into an ice cube, and I can put my hands down in the side and I can look, and I'm like, oh shit, those fish are frozen in that block of ice. And when the pump starts squealing, when I walk outside and the pump's going, ee! I have 3 more over here. I unplug it. And after a couple of weeks, that water starts to defrost. And Cody's like, man, I think the fish are dead. I'm like, well, give it a couple more weeks. Like, I've been putting food on top and they're not eating it. Give it a couple of weeks. we will order every year, and it tricks us every year. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna order 12 more of these big butterfly koi. And then a month later, Cody's like, hey, there's 20 butterfly koi. The big fish are back, right? Could I drain the system? Yeah, I absolutely could. But what do I really do? Cody, when we turn the pump back on, I'm like, hey, there's water everywhere. Turn the pump off, uncouple this. We've got fittings and bulkheads everywhere.
Yeah.
We cut some pipe out. Every year we make a video of fixing the system. It's under an hour. My whole entire system at this point is just pipe and joints and short pieces of pipe. Because I just don't care. It doesn't matter. Yeah. We could totally, we built a metal structure around it. We can put Solex on it. We could heat it. We just let the shit freeze. And I do a lot of that. It's because I'm busy making money, and it allows me to do all that stupid bullshit.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. Guys, I got to go. Y'all can keep rolling. Enjoyed having y'all, being with y'all today. Thanks a lot. You can keep rolling, but since we're on my StreamYard, I need it clear by 12:30. So 12:30, guys, if you want to hear from me on Bitcoin today.
I think we're good to cut.
We're good to cut.
Okay.
Let's go once around the horn and cut. Start with Jack.
Guys, if you want to know more about me, because you got here through one of these other two wonderful people, you can learn all about me at thesurvivalpodcast.com. We've been running almost 15 years, 2-time Podcast of the Year award winner, and you can find everything there. And if you don't want to type that many letters, you want to save some time so you can sleep faster and work harder, tspc.co will get you there as well.
Okay, I'm going to go next and let John close today. I'm Nicole Sauce from the Living Free in Tennessee podcast, where if you want to hear about my time management strategies, go search My 3 Things, MY, the number 3 things, and look at those episodes about how I set priorities and remind my ADD brain to really get a minimum of 3 things done every day that are moving me forward. That's all over at livingfreeintennessee.com. And I did have a question early on about holiday coffee. This week, we are launching our holiday coffee offerings at hollowroast.com. They're already up there, though, because we soft launched them 2 weeks ago. But you'll see that rolling out this week. John, what do you got before we say goodbye?
We do a new shirt. Comes out every Monday. You can see them on soetacticalgear.com. Nicole's wearing one of the ones we've done. And it doesn't just have to be work harder. You have to spend more time working or work harder. But when you can do both, it's not the 100%. It's that extra 10% beyond the 100%. And you can live a great life and do minimal things. But if you want to be outstanding and extraordinary and be the person that they're asking the advice of, it's when you can do that extra 10%. That's what accumulates and stacks up.
Awesome. Great, guys. Well, it's been great having you. We will not be streaming next week because I'm going to be at Spirko's, and we'll be back the week after. See you then.